You can draw this in Procreate. Or actually, you can create this in Procreate, because there won't be a whole lot of drawing. But it is super fun, it is easy, and you will be learning by doing during this tutorial. You will learn how to add text in Procreate, how to work with photos, how to use a layer mask, and a lot more. And the great thing is, you don't need any experience with Procreate or with drawing, and everything we will be using is free. The brushes are already in Procreate, and the photos we'll be using, you can download those through the links in the description. So if you are ready, let's get started. First of all, our canvas is 2300 pixels by 3000 pixels. If you don't know how to set a custom canvas size, then be sure to check my beginner's guide for Procreate. In that video, I show you everything you need to know to get started with drawing in Procreate. And once you have your canvas, it's time to add text, or actually we will only be adding the letter A. And why the A? I don't know, it's just a lovely letter. You can use any letter actually, but of course you are my A student. So to add text, you need to go to the wrench up here, then to add, and then to add text. Kind of makes sense. And then we will type the A. Now we will need to select it. We'll just double tap, then go to the A over here. And we are going to increase the size of our A all the way to the max. Let's zoom out so we can still see it. Let's move it a bit. And for our font, we are going to use Arial and set it to bold because we want a nice fat A. Over here, then tap the brush to get out of the font menu. Let's zoom in a bit again. And right now my color is set to a gray, but it doesn't really matter what color you are using to create this A because we won't be using it anyway, not the color, because we are going to add photo texture. But first, let's make sure that our A is centered, and we can do that by going to the little arrow over here. That's the move tool. Then turn on snapping, so tap snapping, then turn on snapping. And now when you move your A around, you'll see that orange line popping up. A vertical and a horizontal line. You need that to make sure that your A is centered in your canvas. Then tap the arrow again to get out of the menu. Now we are going to add a photo texture. Now let's zoom in a little bit more, and now we are going to add a photo texture. We are going to add paper texture to our canvas. So let's go to the wrench again, then to add, and then to insert a photo. And then pick this photo over here with the paper texture. And you can see that these sides, they aren't entirely filled. So drag the little handle upward on this side, and to the left and down on this side to make sure that your entire canvas is filled. Now to make our A appear, we need to go to the layer menu. That's these two little squares. We'll tap the A layer, then use select. Then over here, make sure that you tap invert, and also make sure that color fill isn't turned on, because then your selection will get filled with color and we don't want that. Then go back to the layer menu. Tap the inserted image, that's the paper texture, tap it, and then use mask. And then turn off the selection by tapping the little S-shaped ribbon. Now you can see that there's some kind of hole, an A-shaped hole in our paper texture. And you can see on the layer mask that that A is black, and that's where we can see the gray A shining through our layer. Now we will tap the A layer again, and now we are going to add our leafy photo. So go to the wrench, then to add again, and then to insert a photo. And we are going to use this leafy photo. But of course you can pick another photo as well. But I'd suggest starting with this one. And then once you have done this one, you can start with other letters, other photos, and have lots of fun with this technique. Now let's go to the layer menu again. Tap the inserted image, then tap the N, and lower the opacity of this layer to, let's say, around 70%. Now we can see the leaves shining through. We'll go back to the leaves layer, which is also called inserted image, and then tap the arrow tool again, the move tool, so we can move this layer around. Now we will want some of these leaves we want them to stick out of our cutout A. So we'll want to move it and think about where we want them to stick out. I will want to stick out over here, and it's nice because then this one will overlap that center of the A, and we have this one over here which can come out in this area. So try moving it around until you have, well, a nice position where you can make these leaves overlap and come out of the A. Now you don't want this leaf to stick out, for instance, but you want a leaf that is on top of the others, because that's when it will be sticking out. So leaves closer to the viewer can come out of our cutout A, and in this case it'll be this one over here, this one over here, and this little one over here. Now to make these come out of our cutout A, we need to adjust our layer mask. So let's tap the layer mask over here, and for our brush, I like to use my fine liner brush. It's part of the treasure chest brush pack. You can get it for free by going to freefromflow.com, but you can also use another brush as long as it is opaque, because we don't want transparent leaves. So I'll be using the fine liner brush, and we'll have to set it to pure black. You can do that by going to the color menu and double tapping here at the bottom. And now let's zoom in, and let's just go along the edges of the leaf. And you might need to guess a little bit because might not be sure where that edge is, but that's okay. I have the size of the brush set to 14%, and the opacity is at 100%, of course, because this leaf, it's not a ghost leaf. It's a real solid leaf. And you can see that the edges, they are a little bit ragged, but it actually will add to the effect. It'll make it look more realistic. It's hard to make a really clean edge to make that look good. You can make it a bit blurry, ragged. So just fill it in. So now we have the entire leaf shape. And then we'll move to the next leaf over here. And of course, you can make your brush a little bit smaller if you're having trouble following that edge. And if you have removed too much, then you can just switch to pure white. Use that, and you can adjust things. So painting with white will remove it, and painting with black will make the leaf appear. So we're actually removing the paper, blocking the paper, and making that leaf show through. And then just color it in so we can see the entire leaf. And then finally, this little leaf over here. Of course, you can rotate your canvas if it's easier to make the strokes that way. I'll rotate it this way. I find this movement to be easier than the other way around. Then just fill it in. And then if we turn up the opacity again of this layer by tapping the end and moving the slider up, you can see that our leaves are sticking out right now. You have already come so far. Time for a little break in which you can perhaps tap that thumbs up if you are enjoying the process so far. And just take a look at these awesome results from previous You Can Draw This video tutorials. If you finish following this tutorial, then do be sure to share it on social media. If you share it on Instagram, tag me in the image, not just in the description, and perhaps we'll see your work in the next video. And if you just can't get enough of these tutorials, then you can go to my Patreon page and find even more Procreate tutorials. Here you can see some results that my friends at Patreon have created. But now let's continue working on our A. To make it look more realistic, we are going to add shadows. We'll want some shadows on the paper because these leaves, they will cast a little shadow on the paper, and we are going to imagine that the sun or the light, well, it is a light and it can be the sun or like a lamp. It's coming from this direction, hitting the leaves, and then they will cast a shadow underneath. So let's do that. Let's create a new layer by tapping the plus. And we want our shadows to only show up on the paper, not on the leaves. So let's tap the layer and turn on clipping mask. Now it is clipped to the paper layer, and whatever we paint, it'll only show up on the paper. Then we'll tap the N and use the layer blending mode multiply, which is ideal for shadows, because now we will be able to darken the paper without losing the paper texture. Now for our brush, we are going to use the soft brush, which you can find under airbrushing. And for the color, we are going to use this first color in the color palette, which I have linked in the description. And the opacity of the brush is at 60% and the size is at 4%. And now we are going to go along these edges using very little pressure. And you can make multiple strokes, making the shadow a little bit darker, close to the leaf, and a bit more transparent as it moves away from the leaf. So it'll fade a bit, be darker near the leaf. And then over here, do the same, follow that curve of the leaf and make a blurry shadow. Now we will also add shadow to the leaves. To do that, we are going to make a layer on top of the leaves layer. So first tap that, then tap the plus for a new layer. And then again, set it to multiply. So tap the N, scroll up to multiply. And this time for the color, we are going to use this color over here, the third color. And again, that light is coming from this direction. So over here, it is casting a shadow. The paper is casting a shadow on the leaves. Let's go along this edge, creating a shadow there. Over here as well, we're imagining the light is coming a bit in a diagonal fashion. We'll add shadow over here and a little bit in this corner. Maybe this leaf is a little bit in shadow as well. And this one over here as well. It's covered a bit by that triangular shape. We can move these leaves back a little bit. And a little shadow over here underneath the triangle. And try using very little pressure, slowly building that shadow up. And if you're not happy with your shadow, of course you can just clear the layer, because this shadow layer, it's a separate layer, so you can just try again. Next we'll make a layer on top of all the others. So first tap the top one, then tap the plus, and again use clipping mask because we are going to add a global shadow on our paper. So use clipping mask, set it to multiply again the layer by tapping the N, then scrolling up to multiply. For the color, we are going to use the gray color again. First color and, well, in the first row, the only row. Let's zoom out a little bit and set the size of the brush to 35%. And then glaze over the bottom area, adding only a very slight shadow to the paper. It just adds a little depth to it. Now for some highlights. First, let's add some highlights to the paper. It's pretty thick paper, I am imagining. So it has some thickness and some light. Well, you'll see some light on that edge. And to add that, we are going to first select the A. So go to the A layer, tap it, use select. Then we'll make a new layer. We'll do that underneath the paper shadow layer. So first tap the layer with the paper, then tap the plus. Now this layer is automatically clipped to that layer because it's squished in between these clip layers and the paper layer. Now we are going to grab this color, which is pure white, and we are going to drag it inside the selection. Now you can't see it, but when you go to the layer menu, you'll see this white A. Now turn off the selection by tapping the S shape ribbon and then set the layer blending mode of this A to screen. So first tap the N, scroll down to screen, which is a great layer blending mode to add highlights because again, just like multiply, it'll leave the texture intact. Now we are going to the move tool. That's the little arrow up here. We are going to move that white A down a little bit. Let's just turn off snapping. We don't need that. And you can tap gently underneath the A to make it move down just a little bit. You can also move it to the left just slightly since that light is coming from this direction, hitting the side here and these top parts. And this is super subtle, but it really does add to the realism. Now tap the arrow again. Now we are going to add some final lights on the leaves. So let's make a layer on top of layer 7, tap layer 7, tap the plus, set this layer to screen, so tap the N, scroll down to screen, and for the color, we are going to use this color over here. That's the 4th color in the color palette. And we are going to make the brush smaller. We are going to set it to 4%. And I can see that I have accidentally moved the slider of the opacity. Let's set it back to 60%. I don't know at what point I did it, but it's not really a big deal. And now let's add some lights to this little leaf, for instance, by just pressing gently. Then over here, just a little bit of light, tiny touch. And on this leaf that's also sticking out. And in case you feel it's too much, you can always just go to the layer menu, tap the little S, and turn down the opacity to, let's say, 75%. And that's how you can create this awesome paper cutout effect. Like I said, it's really fun to do with other letters, with other photos. It's an easy technique which can yield awesome results. Don't forget to share your work on social media, with your family, with your friends, with me. And I would like to thank you for watching. I will see you next time.